if you want to log on and share it on Zoom, that's totally fine, and then I'll navigate this as we move through it. Okay. It's up to you. I mean, I think it's been pretty coordinated in the past. Ready?
Gavel is in. We'll start the Ridgway Special Council meeting August 3rd, 6 p.m. Kick it off.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Council members Penix. Here. Brambley.
Here.
Lakin. Here. Schuyler. Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. All right. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I can't be with you tonight, but I think we can make this work remotely. This is a special meeting to deal with a couple issues around the Yelbick Lane project for Ridgway Homes. But first off, we'll ask if there's any public comments. This is established time for the public to address the council regarding any item that's not otherwise listed on the agenda. Anyone? Don't see any hands up on Zoom. Anybody got their hand up in the audience?
Not here.
Oh, I see someone on Zoom. Julia has her hand up. Julia, will you identify yourself, please?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Julia Vollendorf. I'm the property owner at 660 Otto Street, so directly adjacent to this development. And I had submitted an email to Preston with some comments along with one of our other neighbors. I'm not sure if this is the public comment to address that or
not.
Preston is that later. Okay.
Yeah. Julia, I'm sorry. This is for public comment regarding anything that's not otherwise
Okay.
on the agenda. So
Okay, sorry, hopped on real quick, didn't want to miss it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
no problem. We'll give you another opportunity to speak in a little bit. Anyone else?
We do have a hand in the audience here.
Okay.
Please step forward, state your name, address. This is in regards to not the development, right? Something else.
Actually, it is the development. I'm sorry, I have hearing loss, so I couldn't hear.
Okay.
I do have to go though, because I have a baby.
So John, we have someone here present with a young child. They need to run. Can we go ahead and let them speak even though it's regarding the development?
I don't know, Bo, Preston. I think we could, but I don't know the legal ramifications.
That would be the decision of the chair. It wouldn't necessarily go on the record, but it can be used for background information. So,
Okay, well, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, thanks, John. It's Nancy Madsen. I moved to the area in 2008. I'm a teacher at the school, and I've pretty much been here since then. I moved away for a couple of years in 2014 because I could not afford to buy a home. I moved to Buena Vista, felt like I didn't fit very well there and really missed it here. So I came back to find the situation harder. Despite being married for a while, I still could not afford a home. And so I understand what's going on in the state with the market in general. I know that it's hard for everybody, but to be honest, I have definitely regretted at times becoming a teacher, because I have a master's degree, and even though my health limits me and keeps me working not full-time, even if I were full-time and married, I could not afford a home. And so I just want to say that there's a definite need, and we would really appreciate you guys advocating for that. When I came in 2008, most of our staff lived in town and knew most of our kids. And I felt like I had a different level of relationships with kids than I do now. Now I live just 10 minutes outside of town and I barely see anybody, but I've rented. I have a good renting situation, thankfully, due to some friends, but most of our teachers at the secondary school live in Montrose and have for a long time. So I feel it would be an asset to the community if we could have more teacher presence in town. And the only way to do that is really for us to be able to afford to buy so that we can eventually retire. So thank you very much. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. All right. If there aren't any other public comments, that takes us to the first item on the agenda. This is a public hearing, so this process is a little more formal than some of our other items, but this is a public hearing application preliminary plat for subdivision and planned unit development. Location, Town of Ridgway, Block 30, lots 1 through 12 in the historic residential zone. The applicant is David Bruce. The owner is Ridgway Homes LLC. I will open this up for our planner to give an overview and give us background. Then council will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff, the planner. Then we'll give the applicant a chance to speak. And then lastly, we'll open it up for public comment towards the end, and then we'll bring it back up to council to deliberate. So that'll be the process. So TJ, are you prepared to take it away?
I am, Mayor. Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. If you can all hear me. TJ Luback, I'm with Community Planning Strategies, the contracted town planner. So as mentioned, what we have in front of the council this evening is a sketch plan and preliminary plat for both a subdivision and a PUD. The subject property is located east of and adjacent to Laura Street, south of Otto Street. The property is described as lots 1 through 11, block 30, town of Ridgway. The lots are currently vacant with no existing structures or improvements on them. Further, no adjacent roadways, including the alley to the east, are improved. The property is the property to the north across Otto Street is zoned light industrial 1 LI1 district, and the remaining 3 sides of the property are zoned historic residential HR district, which is the zone district that this property is zoned as well. Adjacent land uses are single family homes to the east, southeast, south, and southwest, and storage facility to the in the industrial park to the northeast. The property across Laura Street to the west is currently vacant, and it's we'll talk a little bit more about it later on in the staff presentation, but only half of the ultimate right-of-way width of Laura Street is dedicated currently as right-of-way. The parcel was approved, so this project, the Yellow Brick Lane Townhomes parcel, was approved for 14 residential units through a sketch plan application on September 28th, 2021 through the Ridgway Planning Commission. The original subdivision layout included 3 duplexes and 2 fourplexes, separated garages off of the alley and some common areas. Due to logistical issues of maintenance and common space, the applicants decided to redesign the layout of the project, which necessitated a revised sketch plan to be resubmitted and revised and reviewed. So that's why we have both the combined sketch and preliminary this evening. So therefore, the applicant has submitted, as I mentioned, both the sketch and preliminary plans for subdivision to take it from 1 lot to 14 lots plus a tract, and to request a PUD. And we'll get into what they're specifically requesting through that allowance process. Since the overall development plan was similar to the original sketch plan, staff did feel that it was appropriate to combine both the sketch plan and preliminary into one process and run them concurrently as to not hold up the process any longer. The applicant is requesting to subdivide the 0.98 acres parcel into 14 residential lots in 1 tract, as I mentioned, dedicated for stormwater management. Furthermore, the applicant is requesting to rezone the property to PUD and to allow a variety of housing types and costs to keep the units affordable for local workforce. If approved, the density of this project would be 14.3 units per acre. So I just want to clarify, I probably made it a little bit confusing there. What's in front of the council this evening is not the sketch plan. The sketch plan, but we do want to kind of make sure that we're talking about all of them. I'll get to Planning Commission did review that and make a recommendation. I'll get down to that in a little bit. Yes, it is just the preliminary plat this evening. The parcel, so we evaluated the parcel and the project against the master plan, and the parcel is identified as town core neighborhoods on the future land use map of the 2019 master plan. This anticipates a density between 6 and 12 units, dwelling units per acre, and a maximum height of 3 stories. Primary uses allowed in this area include single-family homes, duplexes, and smaller multifamily residential uses. While the density does exceed the density identified in the town core neighborhood land use classification of the master plan, the density is consistent with the sketch plan that was both approved in September 2021, as well as more recently back in May by the Planning Commission. During the September discussions on the sketch plan, Planning Commission cited the transitional nature of the site, the massing and site layout of the homes, and the desire to provide attainable housing as factors to support the increased density. Goals and policies identified in the 2019 master plan, which were considered during the review of this project and identified as the project's conformance with the plan, are listed in the staff report in a lot more detail, and I won't go through them here right now. While the applicant is requesting a PUD for this property to address the unique development patterns proposed, the allowed uses must be allowed or conditionally allowed in the underlying zone district. Single family duplexes, townhomes, and with 4 or fewer units are all allowed by right in the underlying HR district, so it does meet that criteria. Also of note, in the latest round of materials submitted, the lot layout was changed slightly. The most significant change was on to lots 5 and 10, where the lot widths were reduced by approximately 4 feet. This additional 4 feet was added to the, I guess, the rear lots, if you will, rear lot lines of lots 1 through 4 and lots 11 through 14. And those are the lots that are adjacent to Frederick Street and Otto Street, respectively. These changes, the changed lot sizes and other associated, these changes, so we identified some of those changes and how it affected the dimensional standards in the staff report. And I'll talk a little bit about them further in the staff presentation as well. So additional analysis of the proposed development and the HR district, as I mentioned, are included in the staff report, just in general. So I won't get into too much of the detail. I'm going to try and get on just the high points. But if there's any questions associated with related to anything in the staff report, we can certainly go through those as well. So onto the dimensional standards. Sections 7.3.15a of the Ridgway Municipal Code sets forth the required dimensional standards, which shall be met for various uses allowed in the particular zone district. While the applicant has submitted a PUD request, the underlying zone district and dimensional standards are where we start. So in summary, the applicant has requested variations from lot size for 7 lots and side setback for all lots which have a shared party wall. Those interior shared walls are also property lines in a duplex situation. Additionally, through the application review process, conflicts between front porch locations, proposed utility easements, and setback distances were identified. In the last round of materials submitted, the applicant requested that these front yard setbacks be evaluated at the time of building permit. However, a minimum of 15 feet is being proposed in the PUD. A table and additional discussion and analysis of each of these is provided in the staff report, along with a map identifying where those lot lines of 0-foot setback are being requested. All lots appear to be able to meet the lot coverage, building height, and the building height of the underlying HR zone district. And any lot that is not expressly included in the variation request will be held to the same standards of the underlying zone district or those identified in the PUD guide. As far as residential design standards and architectural standards, section 6.6 of the Ridgway Municipal Code still does apply. Residential development in the HR district must meet these standards. The section generally refers to roof structure, sidewalks, landscaping requirements, and variation between adjacent buildings. Based on the information provided, these standards appear to be met with the submittal. And in this latest round, we have received a 3D model. So those were included in your packet as well, which gave a better idea of the differences between the building materials and articulation between various units. Moving on to landscaping, the applicant included a landscape plan which was reviewed against section 777 of the municipal code. Upon that review, there were some minor deficiencies, mostly centered around properly calculating and depicting the proposed landscaping. We made a lot of good headway on those items. However, the applicant has noted that the landscape plan was unable to be updated to address comments provided by staff, nor were comments and updates incorporated from the preliminary plat layout. So as I mentioned, they slightly changed the layout, and the landscape plan does not currently reflect that updated layout. To ensure that the landscape plan is accurate, staff is recommending a condition that the landscape plan be updated to reflect the new subdivision layout and proposed utility of the plan, and approved by town staff prior to building permits being issued. So access each of the proposed lots and residential units will have street frontage. Access for lots 4 through 10 and 14 will be provided through the alley. The remainder of those lots will have direct driveway access from the adjacent road. It's a kind of note there related to this section 7.3.15C of the code prohibits backing onto public streets. As I mentioned, lots 1 through 3 and 11 through 13 do not meet this standard. However, section 7B2 of the PUD guide requests that this code revision be amended to allow that. Because such a request can be incorporated into the PUD application, separate variance requests or waivers would not be necessary. However, if town council does approve the PUD, that provision of allowing vehicles to back onto the public right-of-way would be allowed. The HR district further requires a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces for single family, 2 spaces for single family homes and duplex units. The application proposes all lots to meet this minimum requirement with the exception of one lot, lot 11. There on lot 11, so the town code identifies a parking space as an area that is 8 feet wide by 20 feet deep. And on lot 11, only 37 feet is provided depth wise. So only one space could be there. So similarly, that is a request in the PUD guide. So again, if approved by town council, that reduction in parking requirements for lot 11 would be allowed or approved just by virtue of approving the PUD. Moving on to roadway improvements, just in general first. As I mentioned, all roadways adjacent to this parcel are not improved currently, and therefore all of those adjacent roadways will need to be improved in conjunction with this project. However, the applicant is requesting that some concessions be made to allow the project to remain affordable. While a full street right-of-way, full street section is required per the code, which would include paved streets, sidewalk, curb, and gutter for the entire lengths of the streets in a manner that makes meaningful connections to existing roadways. The applicant is proposing gravel surface treatments for all 3 roadways. Additionally, sidewalks are proposed on all adjacent roadways. The proposed cross-section includes an attached sidewalk, which means that it is attached to the curb and gutter and then directly attached to the travel lanes. This configuration leaves a large strip of land that is within the public right-of-way, but not part of the roadway infrastructure. The cross sections were provided in the civil designs, and then in the staff report, we provided a exhibit that shows a potentially an alternative cross section. So given the lack of off-street parking for guests and the proposed half-width right-of-way, staff is recommending that the cross-section be amended to place the sidewalk 1 foot inside the property line. The curb and gutter can be changed to be a 4-foot gutter pan adjoining the driving lanes, and the area between the gutter pan and the sidewalk can be available for parking. So that is, again, that we a picture's worth 1,000 words in trying to follow that description. So we did include a graphic or an image of that in the staff report itself. Next, on Laura Street is being improved to a temporary condition with only half-width right-of-way. At such time the property to the west is developed, the western half of the road will be required to provide a full street per town standards. Utilities, obviously that's something that we need to look at every time we subdivide and add more units. So there appears to be adequate supply and capacity in both the water treatment and sanitary sewer treatment systems to serve the proposed 14 units. Although water and sewer are available in the area for this of this project, there are currently no water or service main lines directly adjacent to the properties. These utilities will need to be extended to serve the project. The alignments, both horizontal and vertical, have been provided in the preliminary plan. So you should be able to see those in your packet. The applicant is also proposing that tract A at the northeast corner of the project be dedicated to Ridgway Homes LLC to own and maintain. And that's being dedicated for the purposes of stormwater conveyance and detention facility. So let's see here. The applicant has submitted a hearing application, the associated fees and other required support materials for the public hearing to the town. The property has been posted and properly notified in accordance with the town code. As of the, we have recently received 2 public comments, written public comments, and those 2 comments have been forwarded to the town council and are hereby incorporated into the record for those purposes. As I mentioned earlier, Planning Commission did review this application and this request back on May 31st of this year. And at that meeting, where they considered both the sketch plan and the preliminary plan, preliminary plat. At that meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the sketch plan with one condition by a vote of 6-0, and that condition was that the preliminary plat and PUD plan for Yellow Brick Lane be approved by Town Council, and all conditions of such approval be met. They further recommended that approval of the preliminary plat and preliminary PUD for the project with one condition by a vote of 6-0, and that condition was the applicant shall address all outstanding planning and engineering comments identified in the review comment letter to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the application being considered by the town council. Staff does believe that the applicant has addressed the vast majority of those previous comments, and we are comfortable, obviously, that the application was ready to be moved forward to you all this evening. So with that, we are recommending, just moving on to the staff recommendation, that we, upon review of the application against the applicable town standards, staff recommends that the Town of Ridgway Town Council approve the preliminary plat and preliminary PUD application with the following condition. One, the applicant address all outstanding planning and engineering comments identified in the review comment letter attached to the staff report to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the preliminary plat being executed by the town. So that's a mouthful, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have. And then I do know that the applicant and representatives are here to give a presentation as well.
Thanks, TJ. I think I'd like to start, well, actually, I'm sort of forgetting, Preston, do we normally let the applicant speak next, or do we let, I think we usually let council ask questions of TJ and you if they have any right out of the gate. So let's do that.
That's right.
So, yeah, I guess I've got a question for TJ. Looking at the cross section on the road work, and I understand that they're proposing a 4-foot valley pan. I didn't see exactly what size we were planning to, they were requesting to put in there for parking. And I'm also seeing that that's a 2-foot sidewalk proposed that, if I understand this correctly, goes 1 foot into the property line. Can you clarify that for me?
Just to clarify, are you referring to the exhibit that was provided in the staff report?
Yes, sir. The Frederick Street section.
Yeah, so that is a concept, if you will. The idea being that it would be a 5-foot sidewalk, and I think I saw Joanne on the call, so if she can add anything, she's available as well. But the idea would be that you could push the sidewalk back to within one foot of the right-of-way line. So there would be 1 foot between the property line and the sidewalk still on the right-of-way side, a 5-foot sidewalk, and then parking. And we didn't go through to see, what those actual dimensions would be, but it sure looks like there's adequate space there. So that exhibit is not to scale. It was more just for reference and kind of to see how those elements could play. And then the reason for the valley pan is because to keep the crown on the road, the drainage would have to flow at that valley pan point rather than at a typical curb and gutter against the gutter in the current proposal.
Okay, yeah, I did see a reference to the fact that the valley pan would be 4 feet. I was just curious about the parking size and the sidewalk size, because there is a note in this, it says 2-foot curb and gutter and sidewalk. So I was just trying to clarify the size of that sidewalk.
Sorry, yeah, the sidewalk would be a minimum of 5 feet.
Okay. And then I was also hoping that that parking would be an 8-foot at least for parallel parking, but, and Joanne shaking her head, yes, that is the case. So, all right. Yeah, that's what I needed. I just wanted some clarification on those dimensions there.
Great.
And then for Laura, the road grade, since we're only developing half of the right of way, that would go towards the development. It would crown towards the development. Joanne shaking her head, yes. Okay.
All right.
Good.
It may just be semantics, but in the staff report, you say under utilities, there appears to be adequate supply and capacity of water and sewer. Can you clarify the word appears to be? Is that, it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So we kind of went back and forth a little bit with the applicant on this and just trying to figure this out. It's almost logistics, or it's mostly just logistics. And the code requires a minimum of 10 foot on all properties, essentially. So in those, like a side yard, there'd be 10 foot on both sides for a total of 20 feet. And then actually there's some conflict between various standards in the town as well for that distance. And so what we asked is that the applicant go back because they want to reduce those and setbacks. So we asked the applicant to go back to the dry utility providers and confirm that they're able to meet the needs, the service needs of those future residents with a reduced easement. And it was simply just to check that box and confirm it. So at this point, I think, and I'll leave this one, hopefully David can address it in his presentation, where that's at. We have received a few written responses that say, yes, there's adequate width for their facilities. We also have included in the staff report a utility plan that indicates that multiple utility users can be located in there, but we have not heard from all, right? And so that's where we wanted to leave a little bit there just to make sure that there appears to be, we haven't heard any negatives, but we also haven't confirmed that it's adequate from all utility providers.
Your question about water and sewer?
Yeah, I think you answered the different question.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, TJ. The question was about the statement saying there appears to be adequate supply and capacity in both the water treatment and sanitary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So appears to be is just a fancy way of saying yes. So there. No,
So
it wasn't meant to be ambiguous.
As opposed to there is.
There is adequate.
Yeah, the alternative option would be there is not adequate, and we probably wouldn't get to this point either.
I figured it was just semantics, but I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, anyone else have questions from council for staff or TJ? Hearing none, I will open it up for the applicant to do a presentation. David, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much, John, and thanks TJ for the presentation. I'm gonna have my boss, Paul, start us off, and then I'll jump in on slide 4.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, and thank you for making this special meeting. We know we asked for this. We appreciate the leadership from Preston and the council to allow us to present something. There it is. Thank you. So I can run this if I know how. We're super excited about this opportunity. If you can see that, what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes to level set, because there's a lot of pressure, as you well know, on development in Ridgway. It's important to understand what is an affordable housing development versus people that just want to build market-based housing. And if you could just take a minute to look at this in the middle columns, I'm sorry about the size, but essentially this is in the middle, a teacher and average teacher salary is $47,000. They can afford a $245,000 home with a 3% mortgage. The prices, as you well know, are $800,000 and north of that. So essentially on that far graph, what we're trying to do is chip away on that price. How do we bring that cost of that $800,000 actually down to what that teacher can afford? So it's essentially approaching how you build differently. It's things like getting donated land, about getting low-cost capital, about building with modular or factory-built construction, because then we can contain the cost and all of that. It's about getting grant subsidies. So essentially, we're basically trying to build a project that backs into that price that teacher can afford. What is really important, there is no such thing as attainable housing.
there is a definition for affordable housing. Affordable housing is when you spend a maximum of 33% of your income on rent or mortgage. So that is a standard by HUD, by the state, by the money that we get. So it's really important that people talk about attainable. Well, yeah, if you're a millionaire, attainable, you know, $1 million house is attainable. But affordability is tied to your monthly or your household income. Market developers are not public funded developers like us. And I'm not trying to pick a fight with market developers. We're friends with all of them. We have advisors that are building some of the major home builders in Denver. But the point is we are in a different category. The way we have to approach a development is significantly different than what a market developer can do, because they can, frankly, they have a lot of money to spend to adjust their program. We've got to basically deliver a product that's affordable for that teacher. And finally, you know, it's important to understand that this is a public benefit. This is what we're trying to do as a public benefit. We have basically spent about $200,000 to get to this point between staff time, soils tests, civil engineering. We will then, if you vote yes, we will then execute a contract to spend $8 million with zero profit. So it's important to understand we're doing this to build you affordable housing for the community for zero profit, and we're taking all the risk. So let me just second to last, well, no, actually a couple more slides. So just a quick update of where we are. We own the land, and that was purchased because of an anonymous local donor wrote us a check for $1.2 million. So I think it's a testament to this community that everybody wants to help solve this problem. We have $4 million of revolving construction loan funding from various foundations in the state. It's 50 basis points capital, so it's essentially free capital. We have to pay it back with the sale of the home. We have been awarded $4.7 million from DOLA. $4 million of that is, again, a construction revolving loan fund at 50 basis. $700,000 is a direct subsidy to lower the price of the house. The town, as you well know, has also been awarded $750,000 from DOLA HB 1271 to help underwrite a program like this, or a project like this. We currently have $1 million deposit with the factory, with the home factory in Buena Vista, ready for this project, and reserving our slot. So if we get approval tonight, we can break ground on Monday, and we can have people occupy homes in December. Stryker is a general contractor. They're under contract. And as I just said, they're ready to deploy on Monday. And we have interested buyers and community support. So that's where we stand. So I just wanted to share this from the superintendent, Susan Lacey. So we've been talking about teacher salary. As you know, they passed a mill levy. On the right side, you know, up until last year, the starting salary was $35,000. It's now $40,000. Again, $40,000, you can buy a $236,000 home. That's what we're trying to solve for. The median price or the median teacher salary is now $56,000 without any mill levy. They can afford a $331,000 home. Again, that's what we're trying to solve for. And that's what we need your help to get approved tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, and hello to the new town council members. I was here last September. It's a little bit ago. I'm David. Got hired by Paul in October of 2020, fresh out of architecture school, to try to help him make this vision of attacking the cost of rural affordable housing. And it's been great. We're under construction in Norwood on 24 units, and really look forward to hopefully implementing this soon. So just to give a broad overview, it's an excellent site, in my opinion, for this sort of program. 14 units of affordable housing. It's equidistant between the schools. It's a stone's throw from the park, and obviously close to Main Street too. In May, we came back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a new sketch plan, breaking up the fourplexes that were on the north and south of the site into two duplexes, two sets of two townhomes. There's a number of reasons why we did that, partly just to allocate the whole 0.98 acre site into individual lots, and then this leftover tract for stormwater management. So essentially carving up the parcel cleanly into 14 ways without leftover space. The design of the parcel itself is really intended to try to break up the density. We're obviously going above the recommended 12 dwelling units per acre to 14.3. So the site design was really an attempt to spread out the front doors, 3 onto Frederick, 3 onto Otto, and then 8 onto Laura Street. So sort of as you're moving across the site, it doesn't seem like there's a whole bunch of massing in one place. There's 6 garages provided in the back, access off the alley for those long and skinny lots, 5 through 10, cut in the middle. In the bottom right corner, which is the northeast of the site, that's a stormwater detention pond, a requirement when you do this kind of subdivision to capture rainwater runoff and recharge it into the watershed at historical rates. Essentially, we're paving a lot, we're adding roof sheds, so that's an attempt to not change or disturb the input into the project. The homes we're building range from 1,024 square feet to 1,200 square feet, and also a 1,600 square foot option. So all these floor plans you're looking at are actually 2 units. On the left is the first floor with the front porches, and on the right is the second floor. So the left unit, the property line comes right through the center there. The left unit is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a kitchen, bathroom on the first floor, living space. You go up the stairs and there's a bedroom on either side of it. The 3-bedroom to the right has this flex space on the first floor, which could be a bedroom, it could be an office, and then with 2 additional bedrooms and some sort of loft or study up on the second floor. On lots 5 through 10, we have this model, which has a larger 1,600 square foot home. The one on the left is similar to what you just saw, but on the right is this sort of great unit for this site in particular. From the garage, if you park and walk through your backyard, there's a rear entry with a mudroom, with laundry, a large kitchen, dining area, living space, with 3 bedrooms up on the second floor. What's different about this project is we're building all these modules offsite in Buena Vista. We're working with a company called Fading West Development, where they're moving the homes through all these different factory line spaces and really building efficiently, which helps us hit these cost targets that we're aiming for. Fun fact is these orange casters are sort of like reverse air hockey tables. So they shoot compressed air down onto the ground and a couple people can push the mods from box to box. So, you know, the whole idea is to bring technology into the construction process, minimize errors, really drive computer modeling, understanding cut lengths, and through all that efficiency, driving down the cost to build. We took a big gamble with a brand new factory, but they're creating really great homes, and they were added to Time Magazine's list of 100 most influential companies of 2022. So we got in the door on time. The production queue is now full through to 2024. Here's an example of a Fading West home. The shed roof is not unlike what we're proposing, but this is a sort of larger 1,800 square foot home. I think they look great. The interiors are especially good. What Fading West is doing is sort of limiting the options of siding color, interior finishes. So they're buying huge quantities of the same building materials, and that also helps them reduce the cost. This is a rendering of a townhome, the 2-bedroom next to the 3-bedroom that we're constructing in Norwood, but it is somewhat of an accurate illustration of what we're proposing for this site. And here's an illustration, a sort of diagram of the corner of North Laura and Frederick Street, looking at this corner condition where we've actually tried to move the front porch to the side yard so that it helps break up the massing, hopefully in a compelling way. Just to talk a little bit about how this project aligns with the architectural standards of the Ridgway Code. Really what we're trying to drive here is some compelling color palette. This is what we've been told is available given all the sort of idiosyncrasies in the supply chain. But purchasing the homes at this low cost creates sort of this standard model. And then what we're able to play with is how it is allocated onto the site and what color siding and sort of porch location. So we're really excited about how this all came to be. I think it fits with all this sort of contemporary building that's happening now in Ridgway. And I hope you guys like it too. And just to come full circle, boxes trucked over from Buena Vista to Ridgway and set relatively quickly. I think they could do 14 units in 2 or 3 days. Just to go into some of the sort of main site points, even though the parcel is excellent in terms of location, it's not excellent for affordable housing development because there's not any infrastructure there right now. So we're bringing it all in, the big horseshoe of roads. We've considered with planning and zoning a gravel surface treatment, which is excellent for the sort of outcomes of this project. But we have to bring in the electrical, water, sewer, and telecom, broadband. I just want to talk quickly about the way our civil engineer worked through the road sections. I think it's important to note there's a unique road section for every single edge of the site. Frederick Street, which is on the southern boundary of the property, was designed to be the town spec for a residential local street, parking 2 sides, 1 drive lane. So really, there are maybe 2 options for that: 8-foot parking on both sides with a 13-foot travel lane through the middle, or 8-foot parking on one side with no parking signs on the other that enables 2 lanes of traffic. On Laura Street, we have this really peculiar condition where the Wolf Ranch is right next to this property. In fact, in the middle of the right-of-way with this sort of odd angle. And based off our conversation with Town Council and Planning and Zoning Commission last year, we discussed an ability to maintain 2 directions of traffic and build a partial right-of-way that sets up for the future full right-of-way. So on top is what we're proposing to build. And on the bottom is the way this could all be. So for a temporary condition, we had talked about 20 feet of driving 2 10-foot travel lanes with no parking signs all the way along that street. And below that, hopefully the Wolf Ranch property line will get resolved at some point. The future street would have parking on both sides and 2 travel lanes. And Auto Street, we're building it exactly as it currently exists, just extending it all the way through to North Laura Street. I think it's important to note that, this is a high density affordable housing. We think this is the right site to do it, given the sort of transition between industrial and residential. And we've worked very hard to try to design the site plan to provide at least 2 off-street parking spots for each unit. The exception would be 5 through 10, where we've actually provided 3 because there's a garage space. The caveat is no one uses their garage for cars around here. But there in theory are 3 spaces. In blue, I've dictated sort of given the 8-foot by 20-foot Ridgway parking box, the on-street parking available for guests. And if you park on both sides of those streets, it would go from maybe 8 spaces and then 5 on the other side. So around 18 on-street parking spaces in addition. I think I'll open it up for questions. I just want to add 2 clarifying points to TJ's presentation. One is we're asking for a blanket 10-foot setback around the property. So we have a 10-foot utility easement. There are no utilities running in those easements, but then we're going to build a porch about 18 inches to 2 feet off that setback line, the easement line. So rather than 15, which I heard in TJ's presentation, we're actually asking for 10. And we've been working closely with, I think in the staff report, there's the utility plan. We've talked with Clear Networks, the broadband provider, and Samuel Power to review our proposed utility paths and ask them if they were all right with the reduced easement size. Letters from both those utilities have come in. They came in on July 18th, so those exist. Other than electrical, broadband, water, and sewer. These are all electric homes, so there's no natural gas coming. And we've been working closely with an entrepreneur up in Telluride who has a solar company based in Portland, Oregon. And he's going to install solar on every single home that won't actually add to the cost of the home. So we're working closely with Terry and his team to look at tariff on-bill financing, where a third party pays for all the solar panels, and then that loan is paid off through a tariff, a tax added payment on your utility bill. So it's a pretty awesome program to get solar panels on affordable housing, which is really exciting. I think it's important to say that I, as the applicant, am unclear about the proposed change to the road section with the valley pan and moving the sidewalk closer to the property line. So I think maybe we could start by just trying to understand the goals of what that would accomplish. But it presents some difficulties for us as the applicant to do this if we change the road section at this point in time. I would like to have that conversation when appropriate.
Okay. Thank you, David. Sounds good. Why don't we next give council an opportunity to ask the applicant any questions?
Sure.
Start.
I heard you saying that you were looking to take auto all the way to North Core with you, whatever the improvements were that you were doing there. Does that include, there's an existing curb gutter there? Would you take that out, or would you stop at the alley with your plan and then let it remain as it is?
The proposal is, so on Auto Street, there's sidewalk, then some green space, then the road, and then curb. Up into the alley, we're proposing just curb. And then after the alley, in front of our project, we'll start to build an attached sidewalk to that curb and continue the detached sidewalk on the other side all the way through to the corner, as shown here on this side. Does that make sense?
No, you lost me somewhere.
Yeah, so the sidewalk on the north side is going to basically truly be a continuation of the sidewalk on the north side.
Right.
And then on the south side, they are going to just start a sidewalk on the north side.
After the alley.
After the alley, rest of the alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, good enough. That was what I was after there.
Great,
And
thanks.
then also, I don't know, maybe Terry will be the one to answer this, but I really like the program with the solar. I think that's really cool to not have to have that be part of the actual capital cost. But I'm curious, what is that payoff? What is that? How does that work on a monthly bill? Is it similar to a regular monthly bill, or for a non-solar?
You can chime in, or I could.
There's a lot of factors. One would be the size of the solar system. These houses are small, they have limited resources. They're probably not going to be net zero, my guess is, to be determined, meaning that the solar may not completely offset the all electric energy use.
Okay.
But just pick a system size. In the Norwood project, they penciled out such that the cost of the loan, which you also in that case included the air source heat pumps, in this case it won't. The loan repayment amount is less than what the electric bill would have been prior to adding the heat pumps, putting the solar on. I imagine that's the target here.
Definitely. So the concept of this program is the sizing of the PV array brings down your utility bill, but then we're bringing it back up slightly, but less than the original amount.
Sure.
To add on that tariff to repay the initial investment. So it really only works if, and the way we pitched it out in Norwood is, hey, your utility bills will be less than they would be otherwise, right? Like maybe leading with the climate change argument isn't the way to go out there, but operational costs of the homes are less with that program.
Okay.
There was a unique difference between that project and this, in that the Fading West had not provisioned the houses for air source heat pumps, which means they had to be added on as an afterthought. And that the heating system that they were putting in the Norwood homes was electric, they call them code heaters, or ceiling, electric baseboard on the ceiling, and they're terribly inefficient. And they would raise the electric bill for the affordable we worked, and these guys came up with this pretty unique funding source through the Colorado Clean Energy Fund. And we're looking at extending that to this project as a pilot and possibly opening that up to all of the members of
I was
SCPA.
gonna say, the Colorado Clean Energy Climate Fund thing needs to allow other teachers who already have homes to retrofit, which is frustrating.
That's their plan for sure.
I'll be your guinea pig.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but that answers my question. We're trying to keep this at or below.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts of affordable housing. One is the initial capital costs and one's the operational costs. And so we realized that we could improve on the operational costs, and that's how this whole conversation became a reality.
These ones, 2-3%.
And a huge payoff if you stay in this home for 20 years, because then you're not repaying the loan on the PV and you're just paying the reduced utility bill.
And at some point, you pay off that loan and you no longer have that addition to the budget.
So actually, question on that, if you do sell the home, is that loan then just transferred with the house?
Yeah, exactly.
Follows the meter.
Can I, this is John Clark. Terry, you're hard to hear. I can see from Zoom that we don't have mics set up. So everybody's being heard through the speaker on the table in front of you. So just those of you who are farthest from the speaker, if you make an extra effort to speak up so those of us on Zoom can hear you, we'd appreciate it. Anyone else? I have a question, and it may be kind of bad timing, but I think we got to raise it. Our experience with the Space to Create building has been that the 60% AMI level is hard for people to meet because our AMI is so high. I'm wondering with 4 60% and only 2 120%, whether there'd be a possibility of switching a couple of the other units to be 100 or 120, just because I think that missing middle is, in my opinion, the missing middle seems to be the thing we're having the hardest time finding. And does anybody agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor, this is Paul Major. I just wanted to address that directly. You're absolutely right. The incomes are higher, right? And so we've got to, and that's great news, right? We actually want to price the houses slightly higher to cover our costs. What's unique about our program is we can bring a 2.5% 30-year fixed mortgage for people at 80% and below AMI, plus a 20% down payment assistance. So we've got access. This is not just us building a house. This is about getting people that, don't frankly have the resources often to buy a house, and giving those additional resources like down payment assistance, a fixed 30-year mortgage at 2.5%, which we will probably never see again in our generation. 80 to 100%, we have a 4% fixed 30-year, and 100 to 120% AMI, a 4.5% AMI, or a 4.5% mortgage. And retail rates on mortgages are going to be 6 and climbing. So to your point, this is all about getting people, that normally wouldn't think about home ownership and getting them into home ownership.
I appreciate that. I just wonder, based on what our experience has been, whether we'll be able to find, I'm guessing with just 4 units, we probably won't have trouble finding people to qualify at 60%. But I mean, the teachers have found that they're at Space to Create anyway, they're not qualifying. They make too much money at 60%. And everything in Space to Create is 60%. So just thought I'd bring it up. I don't know that, like I say, at this point, whether we can change anything, but.
Yes and no, John, as well. Like working for a school, it's teachers, but it's also your maintenance staff. URA is trying to hire a director of maintenance, and they're falling at that 60% number. So getting all of these things to function, and you are hitting that middle, right? If it is up to 120% of AMI, I'm still not at 100% after 8 years of teaching. So I think this is actually a really good chunk to go after, the 60 to 120.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I just thought I'd bring it up. Anybody else have questions or comments for the applicant on council?
On that same line, as far as what's going on with Norwood, have you run into that same situation with AMI? Wondering if you've hit the middle?
Their incomes are honestly a little bit less than Ridgway. Your incomes are higher. And you know, Uray County, by, you know, HUD standards and state standards, are higher AMI than they are in San Miguel County. And then you take Norwood and you actually discount that. So we think that the sweet spot is more, it's a lower income.
And in Norwood, to Mayor Clark's point, we're seeing some people actually price themselves out of like there's a guy who runs a limo company, and with his annual income plus his wife's income, he makes so much money to afford this project that he can't find anywhere to live. So, you know, it's with 14 units, I think 60 to 120 is really good, but there's also this huge gap above 120. Right? But, you know, this project doesn't address that. We're limited to 120 with the state funding.
You know, it wasn't in the slide of depicting all the various grants, but I wanted to point out that we, town, contributing to the Totally Green program, meaning that the town loads are being offset for renewables for an extra penny kilowatt hour. That goes into the green fund. The green fund, in case of Norwood and here, in case of Norwood, we're providing almost $100,000 of additional rebate incentives for the air source heat pumps, the solar, the lighting, the electric appliances. It's going to be somewhere close to $3,000 to $4,000 per unit, and that's partially funded by. It's all funded by voluntary contributions, like the town is doing by having gone Totally Green. So it's when we presented that program in the town, it was a pay it forward thing. This is a classic example of how it's coming back. So I wanted to point that out as well.
I did have a question, kind of speaking of like who are these people? When I was reading the development, well, I guess that's later. Sorry. Oh wait, that's development.
Sorry, Beth, I didn't understand.
Never mind, John. I realized it was in the development agreement, which is a separate item. So
That we're not taking up yet. Gotcha. Anyone else on council with questions, comments? Preston, when's the appropriate time to introduce the written comments, public comments we have? I'll open up the public comment session, the meeting, portion of the meeting. Do you want to read those into the record first, or how do you want to handle those?
So TJ highlighted them during his presentation. Just to note, it's not required that those emails, those letters that we received be read into the record. All they need to be is recognized. If you all want that to happen, we certainly can do that, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
Right? They're reflected in the record for this.
Yeah, let the minutes show that the council has everybody's written comments in their packet. And I will open up for public comment either here on Zoom or there in the room. If you want to speak, raise your hand. And then if you're in the room, please come up to the podium and state your name and address. If you're on Zoom, you can just unmute yourself and state your name and address. I see Julia is ready to speak. Go ahead, Julia.
Hello, so I'm Julia Vollendorf. I did submit one of those written emails as property owner directly adjacent at 660 Auto. So I'll keep this brief since council, thank you for reading my email. I just wanted to reiterate that we're fully in support of this project, this development, and Paul and David and their team. I can thank you for how the design has come together, and it really feels like it fits the neighborhood. You know, this has been a big, scary unknown living directly adjacent to that empty lot for 11 years, especially when it went from 6 building lots under the old density to suddenly 12 building lots under the new density, and then getting a variance to approve your 14 building lots. As a neighbor, that was really, scary for us. So I really appreciate the attention to the development that you're proposing and how it came together. And we really are in support of that. What I'm not in support of at all, and would be pretty much unbearable, I'll be honest, is that staff recommendation on the change to the roadway. As TJ kind of said, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and what they're describing is basically putting a gravel parking lane directly abutting my property line within 12 inches, as opposed to what currently exists and the development currently proposes, where you have that natural kind of grass, green belt or land buffer, then the true curb, and then the roadway. That's what exists on all of Otto Street, you know, up to the North Cora intersection currently. It's fine. People park street side, it's fine. But having that little buffer between your property line that is clearly not available for the roadway or for vehicle parking is huge. It impacts your quality of life. For us, that is our front property line. It is in front of our bedroom. It's in front of our living room. Having that little natural space and then the true curb and then someone parallel parked on the street, that's fine. But that staff recommendation to basically shove a de facto gravel driving lane between the roadway and my property line is absolutely not okay. And given that, you know, with all the density change and all this, it's been a hard pill to swallow, I'll be honest, but it's gone well. And we really, again, appreciate how they've designed this for a neighborhood feel. And we're happy to have community members like us as neighbors. You know, we are full-time, 2-income working family with a daughter and going into 2nd grade. You know, we love living here because of everything they cited in this development, the proximity to the schools and the park. So we're happy about this overall, and that staff recommendation to put that gravel parking lane in between the curb and our property line just feels like a really unnecessary and huge impact on us as neighbors. And I just really, really hope council will not go forward in making the developers change that to put in that gravel. We just want to leave it so Otto Street, like it already is developed on the other blocks, just continues as is. So I just really wanted to reiterate why that is such a problem. When you first read it, it doesn't like sound that bad. When you look at it and understand what they're saying, it's a huge impact on neighboring properties that have nothing to do with this development. And quite frankly, half of these houses are going to have more parking than we already have. So, you know, they have a lot of parking, and I think that's plenty. So thank you.
I just want to say that they're not putting gravel in front of your house. My understanding is they're not rebuilding the chunk of Otto that's been developed, correct? No, you do have to extend that.
We have to extend Otto basically from Cora all the way through to, so we're building this big horseshoe. If you look at the satellite image of the existing conditions.
So we do need to limit the back and forth during the public hearing, but why don't we, David, why don't we strike that and come back to it?
Okay.
That's right with you, the
Yeah.
question. I don't know where John Clark is. There's a hand up.
How about we let Eric speak here locally, and then we'll come back to Susan here in just a minute.
Sorry, I'm back. I just, I'm still having a hard time hearing some of the comments from council, so.
Eric Johnson, 490 North Cora. In a lot of ways, I want to really just echo what Julia just said. We're totally in support of this project. I think it's a model for something that can happen in other mountain communities. And I'm really happy that Ridgway is, starting this process. But I agree with Julia on the road thing. I think Otto Street particularly needs to just go straight through as it exists with the curb and gutter and sidewalk going all the way through to Laura Street, and not changing it so that it increases parking along that street. Town has a lot of parking. The most recent parking study showed that we had plenty And I don't see any real reason to do this. And the other thing, and the same is probably true for Frederick Street as well. And I guess I have kind of a little bit of a question. I don't know whether it's time to answer it, but how are you guys going to align Frederick Street? Because it's totally out of whack. But anyway, that's just, you could email me that answer. That would be great. But I think, you know, the street development as David and the developer presented in their plan, I think is one that should go. I don't see any reason to change it.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, anybody else? What we'll do is we'll take comment. It's kind of a, it might feel like a little bit of a funky process, but we have to take public comment. We don't actually respond to the public comment as we take it. Then when everyone's had a chance to speak, we'll close the public comment and we'll have discussion between the staff and council and the applicant about the questions raised. So I can't see. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to speak?
Yeah, we've got somebody else in the room here to speak, and we've got Susan Lacy online.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Belt. I'm at 3157 Ponderosa Drive. I'm on Log Hill, and I kind of representing my husband as well. Bartold, and many of you know Bartold, and he really has worked closely trying to punch holes in this program, really asking them a lot of questions. They are so innovative. You know, the Telluride Foundation is invested in our communities, and they are wanting to make this project really represent what we all love about living in Ridgway. And I know this is a planning and very detailed about the codes. Just here to really support that this is a great project for our communities.
Thank you, Kat.
Susan, want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you. First of all, I do want to thank our town council and Preston and your team for working so supportively with the Telluride Foundation and the DOLA grant work and all of that. I'm really proud of the town of Ridgway. We've done a lot with affordable housing in a short time. I shared with Paul, because of our mill levy, which the community supported, our median teacher income starting next year will be $56,000. We're still below the median. So going back to some of the things that John was raising, it is important that we don't have what happened with Space to Create, because I do feel that we want to have as many teachers as we can live locally. We had a teacher speak before with the single mom, and she talked a lot about how once upon a time all our teachers lived here, and now they either are living in Montrose or they're struggling to find affordable rent and can't afford to buy a house. So this project is very exciting because it is looking at affordability. I also just want to thank the neighbors. I hear great support from you for the project. Teachers make great neighbors. And I don't fully understand the logistics around the road. I don't know if there's a monetary piece. I know part of the struggle was to keep cost as efficient as possible with the project. But anyway, I think it's important to sort of look at John's question around the categories in the housing, just to make sure. We have 6 or 7 faculty right now that are very interested in this project. So, I know it'll be a competitive project for it's a lottery system. But I just want to put in my 2 cents of support in any way I can help in terms of information that would be helpful for either town council or the Telluride Foundation in this process going forward. And want to thank all of you for supporting a very exciting, as Kat said, innovative project for our small community.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay, we've got somebody else here in the room who wants to speak. Michelle?
Michelle Montague, 380 North Cora. So I'm a half a block away from this project, and Frederick Street coming through will affect the traffic on my street. And I am fully in support of this project without exception. And I commend the applicant for doing what no one else seems to have been able to pull off. So way to go, and thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Another street.
Okay,
Jack Petroselli, 540 Marion Old Willow. I'm gonna confirm what Michelle said. I'm totally in support of this project. I think we're really lucky to have them choose us to do this project here. I think the towns should be proud that they have been chosen for this project. I think the late change of the road is inappropriate. I think it's late in the game, and I think we'll speak about that at the next meeting with the back and forth that we're going to be talking about. I think this is an ideal example of what we're going to talk about next week. So I don't think the road should be changed. I think the submittal should have been approved months ago, and I hope the town approves this project tonight.
thanks, Jack. Anyone else?
We have another speaker. Yes.
Hi, John Bassfield, 570 Chipeta. I just want to say, you know, I've observed this project over time as they developed it. I am involved in development projects as a part of my work. I really do believe that development should pay for development. However, a project like this that is purely affordable, I think that this is an opportunity for the town to be innovative in really kind of walking the talk and creating opportunities to make this possible. You know, paving around a project for developers, that's often one of the tough pieces to make the project viable. I think for an affordable project like this, some of those infrastructure pieces that the town can see a way, we can't see it now, but a way to do that in the future as the town comes up, and making real allowances for projects like this that are purely affordable, where all of this, you know, this design and this business development and this business and this developer work has come to this project really for free. It's the project, you know, we were chosen as a town for this project. I think the allowances that we can make in terms of infrastructure, as you all know, that these development projects, timing is key to affordability for construction. When we build, how we build, really those time margins are almost as important as what we are building to a developer's pro forma to make it work. And those pro formas are so tight for these affordable projects. I think this is one to consider really making allowances without stepping on the town's own feet. You know, and so I think finding that balance and really thinking about these purely affordable projects as one to make allowances for is important.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Anyone else?
No further hands here in the crowd or online.
Okay, I will close the public comment section of this public hearing then and bring it back up here for discussion and deliberation. I have to admit, in looking at the packet and trying to decipher the issue at hand with Auto Street, I'm confused because in the packet way down there's page number 94 shows an Auto Street section that is totally different than what I think everybody's concerned about. And then in the actual staff report at the beginning of the packet, it lists this street cross section that's labeled Frederick Street cross section. So can somebody please explain to me what exactly is happening on the south side of Otto, all the way from Cora to Laura, and why it needs to be whatever it is. If it's, I mean, let me just say, I think what I understand is that it's going to be like is in the staff report, a valley pan, then gravel parking, and then a 5-foot sidewalk, and then a foot of something of just bare ground between that and the property line. And that's what the neighbors are concerned about, is that there's going to be a sidewalk right up against their fence. And everywhere else, there's some green between them and their fence, in most places in town. Is that correct?
I'll go ahead and start this, Preston, if you want. That makes sense. So
Go ahead, TJ.
sure, and a little bit back. This has been a concept that we've talked about with the applicant team since early on. So this isn't something that staff feels is being thrown at the last minute. What we've been doing is kind of trying to articulate how to better create a traffic flow pattern, as well as create on-street parking and utilize the right-of-way that's available to the most efficient use possible. And so what you'll see, the general concept is that what we want to do as staff is to push the sidewalk back as far as possible, provide a sidewalk on all streets, and utilize that right-of-way for both travel lane and on-street parking on all three sides. So just that concept that is identified as Frederick is anticipated to be on all three. However, let me put the caveat before David jumps in, that what we're doing is we want to open that conversation much more diligently on that topic to make sure that it's meeting all of the needs, not just today, but also into the future for transportation, both vehicular and pedestrian and bicyclists. So that's where it's coming from. The condition, or at least the staff comment in the attached letter that's tied to the condition that we're recommending, states that we want to come to a mutual agreement on that. And so I think this dialogue is great because this gives some better guidance for staff and hopefully the applicant too, where are we going and how can we do that? But we felt we needed to bring up some of these concerns much more specifically and deliberately this evening, although they are concepts that we feel have been talked about throughout the whole project. And then I defer to either Joanne or Preston to add on to that.
Well, let me just add before you do that, before anybody else speaks up. I think Eric referred to the fact that it seems Frederick Street might be a challenge to align, but then again, in the packet, I don't see that. The Frederick Street right away is the full 60 feet, right? Or am I wrong about that? Because it shows.
No, sorry, I think that is correct. I think what might be referred to is that the current alignment of the narrow road is somewhat skewed within the right-of-way, but the right-of-way itself is aligned.
So, yeah, and I had that question during your presentation, the comment about parking on each side and one travel lane. I don't understand why that would be necessary when all the other streets that are 60 feet right away have parking on both sides in gravel and 2 driving lanes. So I'm confused about that. Now, maybe I'm getting too far in the weeds here, but I think it's important.
And John, I'll just jump in real quick. Just to be clear, the cross section here that we're looking at in the staff report, that is not currently how the applicant has the streets designed. And so the question at hand is, or the request at hand is for the applicant to be able to forego having to redesign based on the staff recommendation. And maybe you get this, John, I'm just trying to be clear, and opt for how they currently have it designed. So yeah, the Frederick Street section, I guess it says Frederick Street section. That's what we're looking to uniformly apply all the way around, correct? Yeah. And we'll be in line with some of the other developments that we're seeing, not developments, but sections we're seeing currently. I look at you, Russ, with Main Street on the west side of Main Street right now, Ridgway Valley, doing the exact same thing on the west side, right up to your property line. About a foot, not even. It's a foot, half a foot. So just to be clear, and I also want to reiterate, this staff recommendation didn't come at the 11th hour. It's been a talking point for a while. But again, I think you've heard some comments tonight. Of course, the applicant's request is clear. So I just want to make sure we're all understanding what the request is. Yeah, if you come up here so we can hear you.
Okay, well,
Joanne's coming to the mic here.
okay, Joanne.
I just want to add that the typical section that they referred to on the plans is part of what we're trying, that drawing is like 20 years old. And one of the things on my list was to get road standards updated to more properly reflect the direction we're headed with trying to keep sidewalks and make use of our full right of way and optimize the amount of parking. And so, yeah, the town standard is behind, but like we talked last month's council meeting, it's only behind because I haven't had time.
John, I also had a few thoughts on this one. While I sympathize with neighbors liking town right of way and town property, giving them a privacy buffer, I don't know that it is the job of town to provide property to give individual property owners privacy. When I think about this and I think about the impacts it's going to have on the larger neighborhood, including my own home, just 2 doors down, I think providing parking for this unit in this area is really, really important. I think it makes sense that the town kind of maintain control of the town right of way rather than letting some of it kind of be parts of extensions of people's property. Because we've actually run into that in other situations in town where, you know, we've looked at Amelia Street and things have encroached on it. I think staff is on track by saying we need to use the right of way for public purposes, not for providing privacy to individual homeowners. And I know that's uncomfortable and I know that's an ask for neighbors, but I also think it's important to consider what the purpose of the right of way is.
I guess my question though is if we've already got curb on the, let's call it the east block of this entire block, block 30, block 30. We've already got curb on auto on the east part of the block. Is there an issue with having that and not having it on the west side? Is that because that's going to be additional cost to them as well to have to go in and tear out that curb potentially? So
Is there a term that's not on Google Earth?
Yeah, there's no curb on the, so on, because we've got Auto Street. Yeah, there's the chunk in.
If we look at the photos.
So this is the section of Auto Street that we're proposing to build.
Yes.
This section ends just beyond Cora, and then there's nothing. There's just green space. And we're proposing to take the Auto Street section and bring it all the way to Cora. So we're actually not proposing to do the Frederick Street section just on Frederick Street. Laura is its own unique thing. And then Auto is just a continuation of how it exists now. I think what is key, and to the parking point, we've really tried to bring the town standard of 2 off-street parking spaces to this project, even though it's higher density. We have one exception, which is a 37-foot driveway instead of a 40-foot driveway. So unless that occupant has 2 F-150s, you can probably get 2 cars in there. If parking is allowed on both sides of Auto and Frederick with no parking on Laura, we think that we can get about 18 guest parking spaces in this vicinity. There's more if you're in lots 5 and 10. If you have a guest coming to visit, you could clear out your garage, pull into the garage and open up the space off the alley. So I think there's an abundance of parking. We're, I would say, extremely concerned about this change to VPAN. Yes, it's been discussed for a long time from Joanne's initial comment in the phrase, have you considered a VPAN section? And we had considered it, but we were really concerned over this whole project, given the extent of infrastructure we have to build. There is this horseshoe of roads that we need to build to make this work, as well as everything that exists underground. So here we are. We have the civil crews potentially ready to start this. We have the boxes ready to come out of the factory in late November. We're nervous that we can redesign the road, go through adequate staff review, and hit that construction deadline to be able to receive boxes. And there's nuances that we're trying to sort out through the development agreement, where we can pour foundations and build stem walls to receive those boxes when they're ready. That's unusual for Ridgway. We're asking for that. this whole timeline thing is sort of it will expire, you know? So we are sort of proposing and requesting that what we've worked through with Goff Civil Engineering and what we proposed here in the infrastructure would be considered as okay, given this allocation of parking. I think it's important, and this was missed in the staff report, that if this road section changes, lots 1, 2, 3, 12, and 13 will not be able to provide 2 parking spaces, as vehicles will extend over the sidewalk, which would obscure travel on sidewalks. So that looks a little bit like this, that if we make the roads wider, we're actually having less off-street parking for these units with the red boxes, which essentially shifts available guest parking on street to resident parking on street, and is a net zero change. It actually diminishes guest parking. I also did a sort of scale analysis of what happens on Laura Street once you add that 4-foot V-pan. Because the existing condition of that partial right-of-way is so narrow, if we set the back of sidewalk a foot off the property line, the amount of gravel we could have there is less than a foot. So between maybe 2 feet of curb, 8 inches or so of gravel, and 4 foot of V-pan, that 8-foot parking space intrudes into the 20-foot driving lane that our civil engineer has put up. So if we want to achieve parking, I'd recommend maybe a one-way travel on North Laura with no parking signs is a better way to do this. I hear you, Beth, on town property and, you know, should be used for infrastructure. I think infrastructure is also green space. There's value to having trees, shading over gravel. We know clearly wider roads mean faster car travel. This is hopefully a neighborhood with kids. And I think the most important part is Paul and I are looking at this after thinking about an affordable housing project in Ridgway for almost 2 years, 20 months. Here's like this opportunity to do it. We've got the factory queue, we've got a contract with our general contractor, and the time it would take to re-engineer this road could potentially be a deal killer for us. So it's concerning. If you guys see a huge problem with the way we have designed this project to have off-street parking and on-street spaces available, I think it's important to hear, but you know, we've tried to give a lot of care and attention to this project as we work through it with Goff, with TJ, with Preston, and Joanne. So I think it's a trade-off here.
Thank you, David.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, Bo, do you need to say something?
Yeah, I just we have closed the public comment portion of the hearing, John. So unless we reopen that, we really just need to keep the direction to discussion amongst the council members.
Okay, I apologize.
Nope, we're good. Just a reminder we can keep a clean record. So
right. I wanted to make sure I weighed in and said my comments initially were not, you know, leaning one way or the other. And I totally agree with you, Beth. It is 100% common. Well, most of town, with the 60-foot right of way, there's 2 driving lanes and there's parking in gravel, and the parking tends to be right up against the property line. If it's not exactly up to the property line, it's within a few feet of the property line. My house, I live in a very old historic home, and on the Moffett Street side of my house, my fence is at most 2 feet from the parking, and my house is probably 8 feet from there. It's the side setback, but it's the point being, it is very common for the parking areas to be right up against people's property line. And I know that both Nina and Julia are living in homes that historically have had no traffic on the north side of their homes, but it is the street right away right up against their property line. And it's not uncommon at all for parking to be very close to that property line. So while I totally empathize with your guys' concerns, I have to agree with Beth that it's not uncommon for this to be the case, and it's very common for us to want to have parallel parking on both sides of our drive lanes. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that we need to redesign this road. I just want to make sure it's clear what it is that they're proposing and that it matches what exists throughout most of town. So anyone else want to weigh in at council level?
I just want to say,
thank you to Nina and I'm so sorry, I'm trying to.
Julia.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, and I completely understand where you guys are coming from, and you know, I can understand that that would be really a bummer and a hard thing to come to terms with. And I also want to thank the Telluride Foundation for your intentionality. The parking thing was kind of at the top of my list of like, okay, I'm a little concerned about this, but after you guys explained it, it makes significantly more sense, and the intentionality behind it is really well done. That's it.
Anyone else?
So I guess I still have a question, and maybe I just missed it, but with the way this is laid out with Frederick and Laura as Telluride Foundation, or not Laura, but Otto and Frederick and Otto, we have two-way traffic with parking on both sides. Is that correct? Okay, fair enough. That's all I needed to know. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, any other questions from council? Any other deliberation, or somebody ready to make a motion?
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Terry.
All right, and that's with, so
Yeah, apparently we need some clarifications on that
Yeah.
motion. So
we need a, you need to mention the conditions and,
yeah. Let me find those conditions and we'll go back and do that again.
CJ, is there a spot? We'll say 16.
Yeah, so, so this is the move to approve the sketch plan first, and then we do the preliminary plat.
There's no need to do a sketch plan. That was oversight on the staff report. This is the preliminary plat.
Okay.
Planned unit development.
correct.
Okay, so I move to approve the preliminary plat and PUD plan with the recommended condition that the applicant shall address all outstanding planning and engineering comments identified in the review comment letters. Attach this staff report to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the preliminary plat being executed by the town.
Thank you. Terry, you're seconding that?
I'll second modified version.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded.
Yeah, I think I know where we're going. We are approving the road as designed, so that would be an exception to these outstanding staff comments.
Right. Well, that's what we suggested.
Well, no, I'm asking if that's what we're doing.
Yes.
Is that intended in the motion?
That was the intent, yes. Is to go with the plan as presented.
With all other staff comments.
For the road.
Okay.
Specifically.
Okay.
And the motion has been clarified. The seconder has agreed that he agrees with that. Back to you, John.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So now we need a roll call vote, please.
Council members Enix.
Aye.
Brambley.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to, and thank you, everyone. I know this is a big deal, and I appreciate everyone's comments. And it's these things are always tricky. So thank you for your involvement. This is a really cool project that I'm hoping is going to benefit everybody in the town. So that brings us to policy matters. Item number 2. Review and action on development agreement between Ridgway Homes LLC and the town of Ridgway. Bo?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Following up now that we've received preliminary plat approval for Ridgway Homes, there's a number of conditions that both the town and the applicant have put forth that in terms of our normal development process can't necessarily be achieved. Coupled with that, there's the recognition that the town is providing some considerations in an effort to support this development in this project as it is bringing workforce affordable housing online, hopefully sooner rather than later. So included in the packet is a proposed development agreement. This is something that was originally in the packet. There were some changes that were proposed by the developer after the packet was published on Friday, and a late add today that our office has reviewed and we're okay with respect to incorporating the proposed changes from the developer. So with that, just like to draw your attention to a couple of the substantive changes or substantive terms and conditions. The first and foremost, again, the applicant is required to comply with both the municipal code and the town's design guidelines. Coupled with that, they are to undertake improvement of Laura, Frederick, and Otto. However, the development agreement proposes that they would not be required to pave with asphalt portions of those streets. In addition to that, we're requesting that they provide a public improvement bond because they may be looking for a building permit prior to completing all of the conditions on the preliminary plat. So the bond would be, the goal of the bond would be to cover any outstanding infrastructure improvements that still need to be completed. Probably the biggest issue that this development agreement contemplates is a proposed fee waiver wherein the town would agree to waive the cost for both the water tap fees and the sewer tap fees. As I indicated, this is a proposal. And so certainly council can undertake that request and under advisement and consideration. In addition to that, as was noted earlier, the town has received $750,000 from DOLA under its innovative affordable housing strategies. And it's proposed that the town would, as a pass-through, pass those funds on to Ridgway Homes to assist with their infrastructure and improvements. It is not contemplated by Ridgway Homes that this $750,000 would be applied to the fee waiver. In addition to that, there's the deed restricted housing provision. And these are the basic guidelines that we'd be looking for, and similar to some guidelines which the town has developed for other deed restricted projects within its jurisdiction. And that is section 6 of the development agreement. Section 7 is Ridgway Homes has offered to the town the right of first refusal for one, to purchase, I think, and a yet to be agreed upon number of units for town employees, or potentially occupation by town employees for either ownership or rental. On the stormwater management provision, this requires that Ridgway Homes would be required to continue to manage the stormwater management system post completion of the construction of the project. And if and when Ridgway Homes was no longer in a position to do it, it would fall on the owner occupants of the 14 units. As indicated during TJ's staff report with respect to the landscaping requirements, those have not been finalized as of yet. And so we would be looking for a landscaping plan to be approved by town staff prior to the accepting of a final plat. So that was pretty brief with respect to my overview, but those are the substantive bullet points for the proposed development agreement.
Okay, thanks, Bo. Anybody on council have questions for Bo or staff about any of this?
Yeah, I do. In number 6, deed restricted housing, it mentions that there's an attached exhibit A and B, and there's no attached A and B in the packet.
What we will do is just, those are to be attached. So we're still working with the applicant in terms of finalizing the deed restriction provisions. They're working with the state of Colorado to get sign off because they are receiving state funding. But the section 6 was to hit kind of the big picture bullet points, which we were looking for.
Mayor, this is Preston. May I jump in with my own presentation?
Yes, go ahead.
So I don't know, can you see the slide that I just shared?
Yep.
So up on the screen is a slide meant to depict what could be potentially the total town subsidy to help make this project go. Now, the first line, I don't want to be disingenuous. That $750,000, which we've talked about a couple times tonight, is not town money. It was a grant that we received from DOLA. That is money going towards the infrastructure components of the project. And that's money, or that's an amount that would have to be borne by the developer if it weren't for the town procuring those dollars. So for purposes of the exercise, we're including it in the bottom line. Number 2, we've already highlighted, developers requesting waiver of all 14 water and sewer tap fees. That's $168,000. Number 3, there's a provision saying the town shall review and consider all reasonable requests for the waiver of fees ordinarily required for such a project. Requests could include, this is a comprehensive list, of course, but looking at building permit and plan check fees. Estimate, of course, $40,000. That's based on valuation. Mike Gilbert is best to try to do the arithmetic today. Development excise tax, $1,500 per the town code for each new lot being created, $1,000, and then town staff time and materials for the culvert that we agreed to at North Cora and Frederick Street. Total subsidy for purposes of the exercise, we're looking at $982,000. Not a small amount. We just wanted to make sure you all have a picture in your head about what it takes to make something like this come to fruition. I mean, we all had that captured, but hopefully this slide does help. Again, a large part is a grant funding from the state, which is fantastic. We're looking forward to administering that and getting that applied well. I'll just point out, I'm not asking my opinion, but everything in number 3 jives with what has transpired in the past with some other developments. One, in my opinion, I don't want to venture too far, I think worthy of consideration and some discussion right now is number 2. Of course, this is a draft that we put before you all, that we've been sharing between Ridgway Homes LLC, getting back and forth to get ready to put before you all tonight, but ultimately it's a town council decision. So I wanted to call attention to that. I hope that makes sense. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Preston.
That question Pam can answer. Sorry, John.
Go ahead.
I know we may have tapped some of it for the housing authority budget, but we have a line item budget for supporting affordable housing.
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
What was that amount? 35,000.
It was like 35,000. We submitted part of that to Uray County Home Trust. And I don't, what is our remaining budget in that line
That's the remainder, 25.
Yeah.
25, okay. I had that question as well.
Small, yeah, but it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we want to support some portion of that. Like, I think I can say that those of us up here want to do some of that. Wrapping my head around almost $170,000 is a big chunk. I don't know how much of that we can feel comfortable doing. Or, I mean, anywhere in that range.
We have a conversation coming up next week as well, don't we? About lodging tax. And potentially what we can do with that money.
But
that
wouldn't take effect until next year.
Correct. But
yeah,
but these are big questions related to what we're going to face going into the next budget cycle. I mean, I'd be remiss to say, I hope we see more innovative projects like this. And I think the climate already speaks to the fact that we're trying to do everything we can to pull the trigger on this to get you going on it. But with something like that as an incentive, as support, how do we do that when we see the next innovative project come down the pike as well? Especially when on something that's become, it seems to have become a bit of a standard as an incentive, fees on ADUs that we've had. I worry about that when it comes down to the time of budgeting, specifically about water and sewer and infrastructure issues that are forthcoming, and the burdens that we already have that appear to be forthcoming, but we also already have.
We know they're
already
forthcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having that one as a tool for incentivizing, I'm trying to figure out where else can we look. Is there any other way, any other programs that we can offset it so we can not have just 168,000 come out of water tap and sewer fees?
And we have to pay out of the general fund to our enterprise funds.
Right, it
Again,
can't
just-
come out of your enterprise fund, it has to come out of the general.
Understood.
Now, that's not fully true. Bo, I think you need to talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I want to hear what to say.
And again, new to me, I'm just worried about the precedent that says again, especially as that tool that every other innovative project would come and say, but you did this.
Right. So we've operated for a while with the understanding that tap fees can't be waived. If they are going to be waived, if you will, they have to be underwritten by someone else. And the town has done that before with the Habitat triplex. I don't remember the amount, but the town underwrote that amount out of the general fund to the water and sewer fund. Oh, the question at hand is, can the town waive $168,000 worth of water and sewer tap fees without footing the bill ourselves?
So the short answer is yes. Taking a look at Tabor, taking a look at the enterprise statute, taking a look at our home rule status, there is the ability to waive those fees. At issue, as I'm sure the council is aware, is that the water and sewer funds are enterprise funds, and the whole goal is that they are self-sustaining. So it's to be viewed as kind of somewhat of a pass-through in terms of the tap fees are to cover the increase demand on the system. And so that's what you would be weighing. And it's probably an important question to consider.
Yeah, that's interesting. My understanding, as Preston said, is that we've always felt like Tabor required us to reimburse the water and sewer funds for any waived fees, even if we decide that we don't necessarily have to do that. As Bo said, those fees are to go not only to increase use, but to bankroll future improvements to the water and sewer plants.
And it's not to say that, I mean, it's an impact on your budget, but you could look to offset that.
It's not all or nothing. Somewhere like in the middle where we can contribute something out of the general fund towards those tabs but maybe not the whole dollar amount.
I think we also want to make sure we don't get into precedent setting here and like, oh yeah, any affordable housing, we'll cover everything on that. And because we know there's more coming down the pipe. Uray County Housing has the Habitat duplex that they're going to be coming forward with. There's also and there's also their childcare, affordable housing complex.
But also this project is unprecedented. Like, so just as we worry about creating a precedent, getting 14 units in a go is also unprecedented.
And to that end,
Yeah.
the confluence of all the various contributions and philanthropic, I mean, there's a significant vortex here of TC coming together to make this particular project happen. And credit to your innovation to get this. You said future innovative projects. I can't imagine how many future innovative projects there might be with this many problems in the wheel like this.
Agreed. Could I just interject? Mayor, could I just interject? This is Paul Major, because I think looking to the future, that was an important question. You know, are we going to just have to rely on our own resources? So first of all, Ridgway has been very good at getting state resources. Number two, is it going to be $300 million available for affordable housing starting next year? In addition, there's a ballot initiative on the ballot called 108 that will generate $300 million a year in addition. So do it now, and there'll be other projects, and there'll be a lot of state money available for your next project. So, you know, build your momentum now. The point is, this is not one-shot deal. There's a bunch of money. Position yourself to go after that money by doing a project, setting the standard, and then you can go after it. There is a ton of money out there because of ARPA and because of this potential ballot initiative 108. So just wanted to, there's a ton of money.
Yeah, I just want to throw out that I totally agree. I think it was Beth I heard saying it, maybe it was Terry. You know, that waiving fees and making significant contributions for 100% workforce housing projects. I'm not worried about setting precedents there. I'm worried about finding the funds to do it. I'm not worried about setting precedents. And, you know, Paul makes some good points. It seems like the money sure looks like it's going to be there for a lot of this stuff. Who knows what a potential recession will do to all that, but things are looking positive. And, you know, it's something that I think we need to not act out of fear and say we can't do this because we might be setting a precedent when we're talking about a 100% workforce housing project. That said, my next question is, do we have to approve this tonight?
Not from the town's perspective. Now, whether or not there would be a timing issue from the developer, I would defer to them.
I'm guessing you're hoping to get approval tonight, Paul and David.
We do not need approval on this. We're happy to extend that. We just needed approval on our civil engineering drawings, which was essentially the critical issue.
So you can get in the ground next week. Yep.
Exactly.
All right. I see Jake has his hands up. This is not a public hearing, so we can be more informal in how we take comments, but I will take comments now. Go ahead, Jake.
Hi, I do have a question about the offer to offer first right of refusal to the town. Is there, and this is something I've been trying to track down myself as well, is there any issue with violating the Fair Housing Act by discriminating against employment status with offering first right of refusal to town employees? I didn't know if the town had looked into that or if Bo or Paul had any answers on that question.
This is Paul Major. So our deed restrictions, both the covenant, which goes with the title of the property and the house, and then the guidelines have been reviewed both by the Department of Local Affairs and the Attorney General's office. So they actually have the ultimate control of these. So as long as we generally call out and I can't remember the right legal term, but it's groups. We can't talk about teachers. We can talk about school district employees. So it can't be, we have to be very careful. So we've delineated 4 different groups that have priority in the lottery, which are school district employees, nonprofit healthcare professionals, first responders, and government employees. And that has all passed the smell test.
Bo, did you have any input?
No, I don't, I think that that's great in terms of, to Paul's point, we wouldn't be just doing like departments or department heads, but it'll be open up to all governmental employees of the town. So
That makes sense to me. So my question, I guess, to council would be, do we feel like we need a little more time to get feedback on the red line here, or are we comfortable with it as is? What's the feeling of the council?
I'm comfortable with it as is. Someone said that I would move to accept it.
I guess before we move forward with that, I do have one other question. Kind of out there, so bear with me here, but I like the deed restriction or the 6.3 sections here about who can actually procure this. Given some weird issues we've had here in the town before, we've had some trust funders who quote unquote have no money. And I'm curious if there's any provisions in this that would prevent them from being able to get in.
Yes, the short answer is yes. You have to verify your income. So the nice thing about the deed restrictions is we've learned a lot from Aspen and Telluride and everybody's mistakes. So we're trying to take the best practices. So when we say you're in the workforce, there is a very specific definition. It's 12,000 hours, 1,200 hours a year, which is basically the teacher. And you have to document your income. If you're self-employed, you have to document your income. And then there's compliance. If you win the lottery and all of a sudden, you're not working, you're out of compliance. You can come back and there's an appeal process, but essentially you're living in housing that you should move into the private market because you're now a lottery winner, and let somebody else that, is working, making 50,000 a year buy the house. So the good news is we're not the first.
Yeah.
But yes, the answer is it's documented and verified, and compliance is done every other year.
Okay.
And even if the person does have a trust from, a relative or whatever, does that count as part of the income? Is that, there's
an asset test.
Okay.
So you're not qualified if you have 3 times the assets of the value of the house. So yeah, there's a bunch of these nuances, and an asset test is one. Another one is other residential property. You can't own other residential property within 150 miles. So what we don't want is somebody, getting affordable housing here and then, having somebody else live in it and they're living in Moab. Either they live and work in the community or they don't. And that's what the program is designed for.
Okay. Yeah, we've had, like I said, we've had some odd occurrences here, and that was a question that was pertinent to us.
So, and you said it's 1,200 hours?
Is it 12,000? I can't remember what it teaches.
But it's full time is 2,000, so.
The yearly equivalent is like 10 hours out of 40. So like,
okay, cool.
Part-time work, that is not a big constraint.
Cool. I just wanted, given we had a public comment earlier today about not being able to work full time, but still being a project. Thank you. That was
and there's an exception process. I mean, at least in the Norwood project, where there's an established housing authority, exception process. So, if you came and said, hey, I'm 10 hours a year under the limit because I have this health condition that I have to take care of, then we'd be right in. So we have a guiding document with sort of the spark notes with what we did in Norwood
and that's those exhibits.
Okay.
And for instance, somebody loses their job. They're
becomes disabled.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All of those need to be accounted for.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I hear somebody say they were interested in making a motion?
I have, I'm not sure exactly what is it to accept the red lines of the development agreement? Is that what the motion would be?
So I guess my question would be, does that commit us to covering all of these costs?
Part of the red line.
So just to be clear, the development agreement doesn't commit the town to covering all those costs. What is before you would commit the town to waiving the tap fees, number two. And it would commit the town to reviewing and considering future waiver requests. It's part of the course and what we would expect, right? But
So 3 would be worked out in the future.
Yes,
but in
sorry.
approving this, we would be agreeing to 2.
And number one.
Well,
And number one.
And number one.
one's
That was
kind of
the 1 and 2, yes, sorry if I made it confusing. Yeah,
No, just to make sure.
3 is not set in stone, it's just saying we will entertain future requests, which.
Okay. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how to formulate the motion, but are we moving to accept the red lines or accept the entire development agreement with the red lines?
To approve the development agreement between Ridgway Homes LLC and the town of Ridgway.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
What he said.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? I mean, roll call vote, please.
Council members, Bennett. Yes. Grambling.
Aye.
Latham.
Aye.
Skylar. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
I see Bo.
Yeah, no, great. That's awesome. One thing that we do need to settle, and I don't know that it needs to be tonight, is the number of units which the town would have the first right to purchase on. Originally that was proposed, and I'd like to hear from Paul. Originally that number was proposed at 2, and then with the initial draft of the development agreement, it was 1, and now that's blank. So.
Sorry, I missed that. Paul, do you?
I would like to start with 1 and then leave the door open. And I think what you said earlier about where do we set the pricing with the AMIs, I'd like to have a conversation with the council. So part of our strategy is to announce the project, get people interested in it, start to understand what they're doing currently for their housing, right? What is their AMI? What's the size of their household? And I think with some of that data, then we can work together. We're cautious about committing to too many houses to one entity. We'd like to see it as broad as possible. So that's my hesitation to say 2. I'd rather say 1, and then let's leave the door open.
One mathematical way of doing that would be looking at the ratio of government employees. Looking at the ratio of government employees to the number of employees in the school district and first responders. What was the third one? Government.
Health,
First responders.
yeah,
So it's
healthcare professionals.
yes, one may be the proportional ratio based on the number of government staff, or the staff of these other 3 groups.
And I think, again, with the data that we get from people going, I'm interested, sign me up. They don't have to buy it yet, but they're expressing interest. We can then look at that data together and say, it turns out there's not a lot of interest.
So given the fact that everything we've discussed tonight is pointing towards an August 8th start date and then December occupancy, when does the application process open up? So that would beg that we do that conversation.
Yeah, so we have to have a pre-development meeting before we break ground, but our civil engineering firm is ready to mobilize on Monday.
Civil
contractor is ready to mobilize on Monday. The goal is to get the foundations poured by the end of November. So we don't want to be pouring foundations during the winter. The houses arrive at the end of November, before we occupy in December. We're thinking that the lottery. So what we have to do is run a lottery, right? We're going to have more demand than supply. We think that deadline will be sort of mid-October. So that's really the point where we know who wants to buy. In the lottery, you have to come, obviously qualify for these things we talked about, the AMI, the work, you're in the workforce, so on and so forth. But you also have to bring a mortgage pre-qualification. So, you know, it does filter out the people going, hey, I want to buy a house to, I've got to go get qualified for a mortgage. So we're kind of thinking mid-October, because it usually takes about 45 days to close on your mortgage. So it's all timing about the day we have the CO on the house, somebody can move in.
And that timeline was akin to what happened at Pinion as well.
That's what we're trying to do with Pinion. Yeah, exactly. So the lottery deadline in Norwood is August 31. The lottery date, they actually pull the names, is September 16th. You know, we're delayed with the factory about 45 days. So we thought we'd have the houses finished in October. They're going to be finished, you know, mid-November. So it's a little bit delayed, but it's better to be early than late to have buyers ready to go.
And Ridgway slotted in the factory queue right after Norwood. So, you know, before there was a whole bunch of projects in there, and we're done.
Do you see any speed bumps with the change of interest rates that have happened since you opened up on Norwood?
No, because we have that special mortgage.
Because you're working internally.
And then there, you know, but for your average person, you know, just going to your bank, it's going to be a sticker shock. Your buying power just went down by 20%. So with that special mortgage, but we have to get people to find that special mortgage. We can't advertise that based on fair lending practices. So that's a whole nother issue.
Just out of curiosity, it's a lot of topic. It's Fading West incorporate air source heat pumps through ductwork, or are they all just barnacles?
So the design for the Ridgway homes will be ducted. It will be a ducted air source heat pump system.
Major design change for them.
It's a major design change. They have it in the system. It was too late with state approvals, because with the factory design or with the factory homes, you've got to, you know, you're actually approving the architectural drawings by the state. And so this whole process is, you know, normally you do it on site, watch it, the inspector comes, and everything is happening, you know, in different buckets. So it's a major design change. We're super excited. We don't frankly know exactly what the cost delta is going to be, but it is going to be more, but it's the right investment.
So, Bo, since the development agreement was already approved with blank in section 7, do you mind recommending another motion?
Yeah, I think that would be good if we could get a motion from the council. I'm glad that they got the developers' feedback, that it would be either 1 or 2 units.
Somebody want to make a motion, one or the other?
Can I actually ask Preston what his thought on this is, knowing town employees? I mean, because I feel like, I mean, we could also just say 2 because it's first right of refusal, and then we could refuse if we don't want to. So I don't know. Do you have thoughts, Preston, on this?
I mean, there's certainly a need, and first of all, very appreciative that this is even in the agreement. But I think you heard from Paul. They would prefer 1 and revisit this later, potentially 2. I think that makes a ton of sense. So if you're asking me for my off the cuff thought, I would opt for that, but I appreciate you asking. There's certainly a need. Townwide, like at the staff level townwide, you know, pick on anyone in particular, would they jump at the chance of purchasing or renting space? Maybe, but beyond the town scope of the town, there's plenty of folks around town. So again, you're asking for my recommendation. I would opt for what the developer kind of just said.
I don't want us to be seen as like we built it for our people. So maybe 1 is good.
You're a huge investor.
That's true, but
more than
that's
apply
right. Exactly.
Well, as the developer said, he's he'd like to see it be one now, but he's open to further discussions. So I don't know. I'm fine with one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Modifying your motion.
I'll modify the motion to include one first right of refusal slot for the town government.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Modifying the motion to include the one slot for the first right of refusal for town government.
Did I hear Polly second?
You did.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lennox. Aye. Bramley.
Aye.
Latham.
Aye.
Skylar. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Anything else?
I have one super quick thing. It's not even remotely related to any of this. But I happened to go by the post office yesterday and was speaking with Laura, kind of after hours. We were just chatting. And I asked what she thought about the new post office box, because she's been there forever. And I just wanted to kind of, chat with her about it. And she was like, oh, I think it's going to be great. Although I am a little bit scared about the ice around the circle. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up before the winter comes. And she's afraid that like her mail person, or if she's getting the mail around the horseshoe bend.
Yeah, island,
it gets- yeah, around the island, thank you. Around the island, it does get rather icy, and she asked if maybe town could plow more or do more salting or something. And I just wanted to bring it up and make sure that it was brought to the attention of all council members. Yeah.
I'm sure
So, yeah.
staff will say duly noted and see what they can do to deal with the issue.
Preston nods his head.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. And not sure, did she indicate when they plan to do the enforcement permit for that?
No, we did not talk about that. We just talked about, she's excited about it, but ice.
Yeah, the ball's in her court. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't talk to John or anything. It was just her.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? We done? All right, hearing no other discussion items, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, Bo's saying goodbye. All right.
Bye,
All right.
guys.
It's fine.
See you, Bo.
See you all on